Image description: a Zoom screen recording. There are 3 people spotlit on screen. Ōshin Jennings Sensei, a white man in his early 40s wearing black monk's robes and a brown okesa, seated in front of a wicker screen. Tess Wenderski, a white-femme presenting person in their late 20s wearing a black long-sleeve top with their brown hair up in a bun and seated in front of a gray background. And Ben Connelly Sensei, a white man wearing brown samu-e and a black rakusu, seated in front of a thoughtfully decorated altar. After the introduction, Ōshin Sensei is off-screen, leaving just Tess, who is interpreting, and Ben Sensei, who is speaking.
So now, if we will please give our attention to our friend of our Sangha and friend of the Jikoji Sangha as well, Ben Connelly. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Ōshin, for that generous introduction. And I'm so grateful to be here. Yeah, I'm just looking around, seeing the folks here, knowing that you are upholding the Dharma, which is something that I think is so beautiful and valuable. So I'm just feeling appreciative for your practice, and particularly appreciative because I don't speak sign. I don't know sign. The opportunity to share with folks who do is precious. So I really appreciate both Tess and Ōshin for making the context where this can happen, and for all of you who coming together cause it to be possible. So I'm quite grateful. And I'm going to offer one correction, Ōshin. I may be neurodiverse, but I don't know it. But you may have gotten that idea because I co-led an event called Neurodiversity in Zen with Anlor Davin, who is autistic. But I was there, I guess one way to put it is an ally, or another way to put it is just someone who wanted to make space for neurodiverse people to speak about their experience in Zen. And so my role was one of holding space there. So, but I was only honored. I was only honored to be identified as someone who's neurodiverse. And who knows, the mind is various. The mind is various for all of us. So I'm going to jump into this talk that I prepared about my newest book, which is called Inside the Flower Garland Sutra, Huayan Buddhism and the Modern World. And so I'm going to give brief background on, sort of like what the texts are I'm talking about. But the focus of this talk will be on why I believe they provide us support for being more free together from suffering in this particular time, as well as for the last few thousand years since they have been around. And perhaps for a few thousand more or a few millennia more. So the Flower Garland Sutra is a Mahayana Buddhist sutra that was compiled from many shorter sutras about 1,500 years ago in the middle of the first millennium. And it's the longest Buddhist sutra. It's enormously long, and it's incredibly expansive, and it has a lot of characteristics that I'll be talking about. So the talk will be about what these characteristics are and how they bear on our lives. But one thing I'll mention about it is people often say the Flower Garland Sutra is a sutra where the Dharma is seen. We see the Dharma, although we also smell the Dharma, taste the Dharma, feel the Dharma in our bodies. And this is somewhat distinct because in many Buddhist teachings, the idea is the Dharma is something you hear. So it's accessed through hearing and it's accessed through language. And in the Flower Garland Sutra, we really emphasize that the Dharma is directly seen. But there's lots of other themes that I'll talk about. The Flower Garland Sutra, a flower garland is a translation of the Sanskrit name for the text, which is Avatamsaka. So it's the Avatamsaka Sutra, Flower Garland Sutra, which in Chinese is translated as Huayan Jing. Huayan means flower garland. So the Avatamsaka was really, really influential in China and subsequently on all East Asian Buddhist schools of Buddhism. A little bit less so in South Asia and Southeast Asia. But there was a whole Buddhist school, a very influential Buddhist school called Huayan, which means flower garland, which was inspired by the sutra itself. And so my book is actually mostly about Huayan Buddhism, uh, which is one of the main inspirations for Thich Nhat Hanh's vision for engaged Buddhism for the modern and postmodern world. So a lot of my work as a scholar, I do a lot of different things, but I do a little bit of scholarship and is basically following what Thich Nhat Hanh was doing, the great Vietnamese Zen teacher who recently died. And he was thinking about how to make a movement of Buddhism that would accord with a contemporary worldview and that could really help people to make a life of social engagement and personal wellness, social transformation in an integrated way. And he clearly was like Yogacara teachings provide probably the strongest basis. So I've written two books on Yogacara. And then the other stream that he really thought would help us all was Huayan Buddhism. So he's written a lot about Huayan. His teachings are very inspired by and carry forth Huayan. So I've been like, I really think his vision is amazing. And so, in a certain sense, I'm just trying to deepen, or well, I don't know about deepen, but sort of continue the work that he was doing. And then lastly, just in terms of the text I'm working with, so we have the sutra itself, the Flower Ground Sutra itself, we have Huayan Buddhism, and then the book I have written is a commentary on a very short text from Korea called The Song of Dharma Nature, or sometimes called the Ocean Seal Chart because it's written in a particular sort of chart shape. Anyway, so the Song of Dharma Nature really helped me to write this book because it has 210 Chinese characters. And the sutra has 1.5 million Chinese characters. So I just thought I would make my life easier by taking the text that was a little bit more manageable. So I've written a book there's 30 lines in the poem, The Song of Dharma Nature, and I just have one chapter per line. And the idea is that the Song of Dharma Nature was written as a way for people on a daily basis to recall and take in the messages of the Flower Garland Sutra, to integrate them into their lives, which is hard to do with 1.5 million characters. So it's like a very concise expression of something that is expressed very expansively in the sutra. So the general themes of this tradition are abundance. So the sutra itself is abundant. It's replete with many, many images of beauty, wonder, compassion, everything, all these beautiful, wonderful things always present. So there's this sense of like being in a world that is abundant with everything that is beautiful and beneficial. So this is one theme. Another theme is diversity of people, needs, practices, and capacities. And I'll talk about all these themes. That'll be what the content of this talk will be. Unlimitedness. So this is kind of related to abundance. So just viewing a world where time is unlimited, our relationship to unlimited time is unlimited, space is unlimited, sentient beings are unlimited, our capacity for compassion and wisdom is unlimited, everyone else's capacity for compassion and wisdom is unlimited. So abundance again, I guess, but in a particular frame. Interdependence is arguably the most important theme of Huayan and the Flower Garland Sutra. So if you find people who are, somewhat familiar with Buddhism and know something about the traditions. And he said, what is Huayan known for? They would probably say interdependence. And the idea that things depend on each other is basic to all Buddhist thought, but it's extremely emphasized in Huayan, and the implications of what it means that everything depends on everything else, and each thing depends on everything, and everything depends on each thing, are expanded on, investigated, and we're reminded of them again and again. Also, just different ways of thinking about interdependence are the many, many different methods that the tradition presents. Sensual pleasure, big theme of the text. So just like enjoying beautiful things, which is somewhat unusual in Buddhist texts. Not unique, but somewhat unusual. And social engagement. So lots and lots of messages about practice being something that occurs in the social sphere and is socially transformative and directly benefits people and animals and the earth. So these are the themes: abundance, diversity, unlimitedness, interdependence, social engagement, sensual pleasure. So I'll start kind of working through these. Abundance. In the Song of Dharma Nature, which is the text my book is a commentary on, a line-by-line commentary, it says, the abundant manifestations of wish fulfillment are inconceivable. This rain of jewels benefits all life, filling all space. All beings benefit according to their capacities. So, jewels, you could have called it the Jewel Ornament Sutra, because there are lots and lots of jewels in the Flower Ornament Sutra, like millions and I mean, like, I don't even know. Well, not millions, because there's only 1.5 million character. So I don't know. There's a lot. So jewels generally, one, the idea is they're beautiful. So when you read the text, you're seeing beautiful things, and those beautiful things are revealing the Dharma to you. Everything is precious. You're seeing always things that are precious and valuable and worthy of care. And one other theme here is that jewels represent skillful means. So all the Song of Dharma Nature is a Korean text. And all the Korean commentators I found, there are a lot, but I only studied a few. It's a very influential text in Korea. All of the commentators said the jewels here signify or represent skillful means. They represent the capacity of sentient beings to do something beneficial. So the idea is you are being presented with an image of the universe, or in the text it says, this rain of jewels benefits all life, filling all space. All beings benefit according to their capacities. So like a rain of jewels, just picture all the air that you can see full of just like this endless stream of jewels. And every one of those jewels is a sentient being's capacity to do something beneficial. And you might think, well, that's just crazy. But actually, it is a profoundly insufficient metaphor for how much beneficial capacity there is in the world already right now. Because from a Buddhist perspective, if there is sentience, if you are a sentient being in any given moment, you can offer something beneficial for liberation. That's the basis of the Four Noble Truths. There's suffering, and if you are conscious, not in some special way, conscious in any way at all, you can offer something that will be liberative. And there are 8 billion people on this earth, and that's just people. I don't even count all the animals and other things that may be sentient that I don't understand yet, all of which, in every single moment, have the capacity to offer something beneficial. And that's always true. It will be true until we die, and it will be true after we die. And it was true before we were born. So, replete. What if we view the world With this lens, every sentient being we encounter, we recognize their capacity to do something beneficial. Every moment of our own awareness, we recognize our capacity to do something beneficial. And always we are full with the sense that there is a universe full of beings that can do something beneficial. Now, I am aware you might be like, no, there's people doing terrible things, and how can you say this? It's a different way of looking at things. And I think it has some value. It has some value. So I do want to read a passage from the book related to this. I like the cover of the book. It's really pretty. This is some text from the Huayan Jing, the Flower Garland Sutra. You probably cannot read it. I can't. Anyway, so I'm commenting on this line about the rain of jewels in the book. This teaching is to evoke a sense of abundance. It is to cut through anxiety, alienation, and clinging. Early Buddhist texts focus on giving things up so we can be free of our clinging. Huayan texts emphasize seeing a world so replete with riches that we feel no need to hold on. Huayan teachers understand that these abundant manifestations require our actual giving. In his commentary on this line, Pabyong writes, "It may be compared to the wish-fulfilling gem possessed by a wheel-turning king. If it is kept in the royal treasury, it does not rain down all manner of treasures." In a Pali Canon text, a king gets wise counsel on how to deal with bandits overrunning his realm. His advisors tell him that punishment and violence will not end the epidemic of crime. But, and here I quote this Pali Canon text, "With this plan, you can completely eliminate the plague of crime. To those in the kingdom who are engaged in cultivating crops and raising cattle, let your majesty distribute grain and fodder. To those in trade, give capital. To those in government service, assign proper living wages. Then those people, being intent on their occupations, will not harm the kingdom. Your majesty's revenues will be great. The land will be tranquil and not be beset by thieves, and the people, with joy in their hearts, playing with their children, will dwell in open houses." So, basic idea is if you have crime, the best response is to give people resources. That's Buddhist, by the way. You might think, oh, is that like a political thing? Well, it's just from a Buddhist text. I don't know what you can do with that what you will. So I work with a lot of activists, on things like trying to stop the construction of oil pipelines, advocating for racial equity, advocating for safety for transgender people. And many, many people in my field talk about abundance, especially indigenous people, the scarcity view of people of European descent that makes them feel like they have to accumulate constantly in order to be safe against a world that is not made for them. Luther Standing Bear, the great Lakota elder, once said, "Only to the white man was the earth, sorry, I'll start again. Only to the white man was the earth a wilderness full of wild animals and savage people. To us, the earth is bountiful, and we are surrounded by the blessings of the great mystery." So the idea that having an abundance view can help us let go and just enjoy what we're receiving moment to moment runs throughout the Huayan tradition. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to talk about interdependence a little bit. So here are some lines from the Song of Dharma Nature on interdependence. Within one is all. Within many is one. One is all, the many are one. Within one mote of dust is contained the 10 directions. Within each phenomena, it is also thus. Immeasurable, distant eons are one moment of mind. One moment of mind is immeasurable eons. So the implication of things depending on each other is that each thing depends on everything, everything depends on each thing depends on each other particular thing, and we get a lot of investigation of these kind of ideas, different ways of looking at it. I think I'll just read a little bit from the book to get to this. Empress Wu is widely considered the only female sovereign in the history of China. She was closely associated with Huaiyan and drew authority from claiming the power of the Avatamsaka Sutra's main icon, Vairochana Buddha. I do not think theocratic government is a good idea. However, there is something inspiring in the fact that this singular matriarchal figure drew authority from these particular teachings. This authority was surely related not only to the many powerful female teachers in the final chapter of the Avatamsaka, but also to the Huaiyan idea that each part contains the whole. Fatsang was the empress's teacher. He was looking for a way to convey the interdependence and non-obstruction that define Huaiyan. He built a small room whose walls were all mirrors, placed a lamp and a Buddha statue inside, and entered with the empress. In the endless reflections, she realized the vastness of their relationship. After they had some time to get accustomed to the spaciousness, Fatsang held out a small crystal ball. They looked inside the tiny reflective object and saw the entire space of repeating Buddha's selves and light in the palm of his hand. So again, we see the Dharma taught as something seen, directly perceived in the senses. And the implications of interdependence are almost too vast to comprehend. But a big part of it here is recognizing that we are inescapably bound to the social and interpersonal and personal and ecological contexts that have created us and that we are creating. I'm going to read another short passage here. So the author of the Song of Dharma Nature, his name is Wee Sung, a Korean monk named Wee Sung. When Wee Sung traveled to China for the Dharma, he met a woman named Sunmyo. I have no idea how you translate these names in other languages. I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you. Anyway, when Wee Sung traveled to China for the Dharma, he met a woman named Sunmyo who fell in love with him. He told her that his vow of celibacy meant he could not requite her love, and her ardor to protect him on the path transformed her into a dragon. After years of caring for him on his travels, she became a great stone, hovering over invaders outside one of the first temples he founded. She is perched there now, a great stone guardian overlooking the temple of the floating stone in Korea. The times of myth, of history, and of the present can collapse in a good tale. Trauma, too, can make the interpenetration of times vivid. Yesterday, someone described being overwhelmed by emotions during an argument with a friend. Suddenly, they had the jarring experience of being a 3-year-old child, feeling the same rage, the same need to hold someone at bay who won't say no, that was showing up in their present life. This collapsing of time and identity rang true to my own experience when I was receiving treatment for post-traumatic stress. Somehow, I could be totally aware of my own bodily sensations, my own present moment sensory environment, my own agency and adulthood, and also absolutely be the terrified child consumed by shame, terror, and rage, who in linear time had grown up 30 years ago. Teachings on karma have much in common with contemporary theories of trauma. So does the Huayan emphasis on the interpenetration of past, present, and future. Scientific data show the deep relationship between a child struggling to find food and safety in an impoverished neighborhood and an adult being pushed into a prison cell. Understanding karma can help us know the importance of our actions. Knowing interdependence opens up space for compassion and shows that we can create conditions for freedom for everyone. So there are many ways to more deeply recognize interdependence. Many, many, many. And many of them in Huayan, we use words, teachings, ways of seeing. But one of the best ways is to practice zazen and allow the mind to rest in what is and open the hand of thought. Because it is only the mind's tendency to divide that makes it seem like a divided world. The world is already a seamless web of interdependence. And when our mind is not cutting it up, we can more easily see what is actually here, which is intimacy. So another theme of Huayan is particularity and activity. So since the entire world shows up in the form of each thing, that means each thing is precious, valuable, and worthy of care. Every emotion that you have, every emotion that another person you have, that you're with, you encounter, all of them, without exception, worthy of care and attention. But what is emphasized really in Huayan is things, like what we would consider material things. So usually I would think this is a book, which is like an actual material object, which it isn't. But conventionally, we think of them that way. And those things are valued as precious because they're always manifestations of the whole. And so this has had a huge impact on how Soto Zen is practiced, in that we have so much emphasis on, how do we take care of the cushion before and after we sit down? How do we care for our altar on a daily basis? How do we care for the cooking of food, of the cutting of this particular piece of a carrot? how do we care for sewing these ritual garments? So early Buddhism, the Theravada tradition does not, at least in the text, it does not emphasize this at all, taking care of material things. But where does this come from? In the Soto Zen tradition, largely emerges from the Hawaiian emphasis on caring for particular and specific, apparently material things. And this puts me in mind of one of the great philosophers of the 20th century, a woman named Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt was a Jewish woman who escaped Europe just in the late 30s to the United States, and then spent many years doing work trying to understand what authoritarianism is, what causes authoritarianism, and how to prevent authoritarianism. For some reason, is on my mind. And Hannah Arendt once wrote, even the smallest act in the most limited circumstances bears the seed of boundlessness. Even the smallest act in the most limited circumstances bears the seed of boundlessness. And this sounds like it could come directly out of a Hawaiian text or from the Flower Garland Sutra. And I do think the context is like just recognizing that with authoritarianism, we tend to focus on the authoritarian leader, or perhaps on like the bad authoritarian people or the people who are following it or something. And that's all fine, but also we need to remember that the world comes down to acts by people. The world that we inhabit socially is set up by momentary acts, people agreeing agreeing to something happening or being complicit in it or ignoring it. So Huayan gives us this idea that it's like in any moment, we can always do something and it always matters. It always matters. What you're doing always matters, which I will say is the basic idea of the Four Noble Truths as well. So it's just pointing back towards the fundamental teaching of the Buddhist tradition. Anyway, one last theme I want to talk about is social engagement. So I've talked about abundance, interdependence, particularity, and activity. And lastly, I just want to talk about social engagement. And I think I'm just going to read from the book to point to this. So the Flower Garland Sutra has many chapters, and three of them are generally considered to be the most influential. All of them existed on their own prior to being compiled into the Flower Garland Sutra, which is like a big compilation. So, yes, Ganda Vyuha. What? This thing is called the Ganda Vyuha Sutra. The Ganda Vyuha Sutra, or Entry into the Realm of Reality, is the third of the key standalone sutras that were incorporated into the Flower Garland Sutra. It constitutes its final and longest chapter. It's 500 pages long. The chapter is 500 pages long. This chapter tells the story of a young man named Sudana who commits his life to liberation from suffering for everyone and everything, and of his long and wondrous pilgrimage on the path. He meets with 53 teachers, each of whom shows him a staggering level of spiritual attainment, and then ends their meeting by saying they can't possibly know the way to liberation. Each one sends him on to visit another teacher to keep practicing. The teachers he meets include beggars, queens, boys and girls, monks, nuns, rich men, mathematicians, sailors, perfumers, goddesses, scientists, bark-clad outcasts, folks who change genders, people dressed in rags, those bedecked in jewels, a prince who almost loses his life working to free all the prisoners in his land, and great bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Samantabhadra. They teach in myriad ways, all different and appropriate to themselves and those they meet. They teach by feeding people. They teach by feeding people through physical touch, by making beautiful scents and cloths and palaces, by writing, by teaching meditation, by expounding the Dharma, by revealing suffering, and by guiding people through storms. This sutra provides inspiration for those of us looking to create multicultural, engaged Buddhist communities. So, difference. What is Audre Lorde wrote? Difference must not be merely tolerated, but must be seen as a necessary fund of polarities between which our creativity can spark. And, I do a lot of activism, so I will help organize or participate in protests and rallies and vigils and trainings for people who are interested in ending patriarchy and racism and transphobia and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, things like that. Lots of things like that. And so then people think, oh, I guess, are you saying that's how we have to do it? And the answer is definitely not. This is what I'm doing. I talk about it because it's what I know something about. But what I am interested in is people waking up to the possibility of liberation and their capacity to contribute to it. That is beyond my knowing. And this sutra celebrates that different ways. What is common to all these teachers is their aspiration that everyone be free from suffering and their energy to embody that aspiration. But the expression comes from their particular way of being, their particular social identity, their capacities, their needs, the people they are with, the environment they are in. And that means they're a lot like us. So, I appreciate your attention here. And I wanted to leave a good amount of time to hear and see from you to understand how this is impacting you. So I welcome questions or reflections. And it is nice to hear from a lot of people. So I'm going to encourage people to be up for saying something, and then also encourage people to be sort of terse or short in your expression so we can have many views.